One of the most revered, calculated, horrifying monsters in modern fiction, Gustavo Fring is the pillar of meth-head capitalism in the Breaking Bad universe. A truly despicable man that has an interesting and compelling backstory. Is he a psychopath? Let's dive in. Gustavo Fring's backstory is largely unknown. Being one of the frontrunners of Better Call Saul, a 6-season extravaganza, you'd think the character would be a lot more fleshed out, but this isn't the case. All we know is that he and his friend, quote-unquote, Max Arciniega, started a chicken shop company in a bid to minimise the cops' suspicions of them being at the forefront of meth distribution in the South. Presenting this idea to Don Eladio causes the cartel boss man to brutally execute Max in front of Gustavo, birthing the lifelong rivalry. Psychopathy is usually believed to be born and not made, and it is in this scene that we see Gustavo break down, similar to Walt in Ozymandias. Now, would a psychopath act like this? Well, yes and no. Assuming Gustavo was in love with this man, psychopaths can actually be in love. They can love, just not in the same way me and you can, assuming you're not a psychopath. Yes, I'm looking at you. Nevertheless, it's quite hard to pinpoint exactly what this scene could reveal about Gus's character. Having already been in the game, the Chilean man would have been accustomed to all of the tropes and goings-on of the drug business. It's safe to assume that his cold antics and business strategies would have been in place long before this execution. Now, I conclude that it's a fair judgment to say that this scene is not a point to argue Fring not being a psychopath. I conclude that a psychopath could 100% act this way, being in the given scenario. Fring lacks empathy. He slits Victor's throat brutally in box cutter, just to prove a point to Walt, Mike and Jesse. This act alone can group together coldness, lack of empathy, and lack of remorse, because over the next minute or so, Gustavo Fring doesn't even express remorse for the killing of one of his most loyal men. Shocking, shocking stuff. Another chilling sign that shows that Gustavo Fring lacks empathy is when he grants the Salamanca twins full permission to violently axe DEA agent Hank Schrader to death. Now, bearing in mind the positive interactions and relationship Gus has with the DEA. Now, yes, this is business, and yes, Gus does make the 1-minute call to Schrader, but I do fully believe that the man has zero empathy for those around him. Now, Fring is very superficially charming, and this is a telltale sign of psychopathy if I've ever seen one. He can turn his charm on in an instant, and drop back into his evil and cold persona on command. His charm is so deep-rooted into the DEA that they just couldn't believe Hank when he presented them with the idea that Gus could be the man behind it all. Now, in everyday life, the psychopath hides in plain sight. Your boss that charms you, cracks jokes, seeming idyllic and put together, could be a Patrick Bateman chopping up hookers in the dead of night. You'd never know, because the psychopath is so good at charming those around him and hiding in plain sight. Now, psychopaths often lack realistic and long-term goals. Now, we can rule this out for Gustavo Fring. His plan was to clearly pioneer and create a monopoly in the meth business, which he successfully did, by the way, before he died. This leads us beautifully into impulsivity. Now, apart from obvious scenes, such as the Victor scene, Gus isn't overly impulsive. Yes, he's cold and calculated, but he lacks the fiery impulsivity that a real psychopath would possess. The psychopath in your life is prone to flying off the handle. He's the one guy you know not to piss off. However, can still take jokes and is accepting of others' flaws. I wouldn't be too scared of pissing Gus off, as I know that I won't die there and then, but I'll probably get it 10 days later by one of his men. So, to conclude, what does all of this say about the character of Gustavo Fring? While I don't think it's fair to label fictional characters with mental health disorders, I'm going to conclude that Gustavo Fring has ASPD. I've been doing hours of research, and even I can't figure out whether it's psychopathy or sociopathy, but if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Until next time.